Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. In coordination with the Association of Independent Colleges of Art and Design, GradLeaders Research presents Graduate Employment Survey Best Practices, an AICAD panel on using the outcome survey. The agenda for this presentation includes an opening welcome from Joanne Kirsch, the coordinating representative from AICAD. Then we will briefly introduce the outcome survey to provide a little bit of background. From there, we will share some of the general best practices and rules of thumb for administering graduate employment surveys, which we have learned over the years since the outcome survey was launched. From there, we will hear from our art and design panelist institutions on the experiences that they have had conducting these surveys and particular strategies they have employed to maximize their results. We will conclude by summarizing some takeaways and tips that might help you in survey initiatives on your campus. We're going to be monitoring the chat function of the webinar platform throughout the presentation for any questions. If time allows, we will address some of these questions a little bit more in depth during a brief Q&A at the end of the presentation. If we don't happen to get to your email, we will also provide a couple of contacts for you to send those in via email, again provided at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, may I present Joanne Kirsch.
Hey, everybody. For anybody who doesn't know me, I am an assistant director at AICAD, and I oversee all the data and research activities. I don't think I'm in control of the slideshow, so you can just go on to the next one, whoever's doing that. Thanks. So we wanted to put this webinar together today to provide information for those AICAD schools who may be considering participating in the outcome survey for the first time, as well as for those schools who may have participated in years past and are looking to get the most out of continuing in their participation. AICAD schools have been participating as a group in the outcome survey for a while now. We're heading into our 4th year. On the screen, you can see the schools that have participated over the last 3 years. And we highly value the information that we get from being a part of the collaborating with the folks at the outcome survey. I think it's really valuable for AICAD as a collective group of art and design schools, as specialized institutions, to be able to document where their graduates are landing and how their graduates are landing. I think first destination employment surveys are of particular import for schools like ours. The results allow us to discuss the benefits of art and design education with a little more authority. The narrative of, as you probably all know, the narrative of the starving, unemployable artist remains a challenge for our schools, and I think the data from the outcomes survey helps us construct a story that pushes back a little bit against that narrative. So because of the value we see in this data, we're committed to ongoing broad participation, and as part of this commitment, we want to explore ways in which we can help our members get the most out of their participation. So, for example, by sharing techniques for maximizing response rates and discussing how maybe data has been used by institutions in the past effectively. So the AICAD umbrella is something that we've constructed to benefit our smallest schools and to make participation affordable for them. We've worked with the folks at GradLeaders to construct this AICAD umbrella for our schools. Any of our schools that have a total FTE below 500, these schools participate sort of collectively as a single entity administered by AICAD, but they're able to access their individual school results. This year we're giving small schools greater control over their participation. So if anybody is interested in learning more about that, I know I've sent an email out in the past, but if there's people on this call who are interested in learning more about that, maybe we can cover that at the end. I think Esme's on the call, and she has great information about how we can move forward there. So I'm going to pass the call back to Michael now, and I'm going to listen quietly.
Thanks, Joanne. Just as a brief introduction, my name is Michael Bell. I'm a Research and Analysis Associate with GradLeaders and on the GradLeaders Research Team, as you can see hopefully up on the presentation now. I have a master's degree in psychological research and over 6 years of academic and professional experience conducting survey research, background information on survey research methodology, reporting, and data analytics. I joined the outcome survey team in 2014, shortly after the initial launch of the survey in May 2014. And what I do is I consult with our customers on setting up and designing their surveys to answer institutional questions and to best address reporting initiatives that they face. Additionally, I help compile and manage national reports that we pull together from all of our customers across the nation, and we publish out to them so they have a benchmark to compare their institutional level data as well as the general public. As a brief introduction for the outcome survey, this is a national standardized survey solution with standardized question sets as well as campus level customized questions. So what that means is that we collect standardized national outcomes data on college graduates, and we provide reports to our customers in an automated fashion. The data collection and reporting protocols that we have developed into the survey are based on IR best practices and survey methodology best practices. We provide one-click and custom reports that meet national reporting standards as well as those institutional level reporting needs. Additionally, we have response generation and response rate monitoring tools for our administrators to effectively monitor the progress of those surveys that they are running. We also have a greatly facilitated administration process to help anyone and everyone get a survey up and running that is really top tier, and they will get the best results possible for these kinds of survey initiatives. Since we've been around the block since about 2014, we have worked with over 185 schools and institutions across 44 U.S. states and territories. And so with that wide array of institutions spanning the country, we're able to provide a complex and comprehensive data set for our institutional partners to compare their data against at the national level. Over that time, since 2014, when we began, we've identified with our institutional partners several best practices for really getting the most out of your surveys. And some of these we'll be covering today, such as general rules of thumb, what to do before you launch your survey, before it even begins, utilizing incentives, incorporating the survey with graduation events, utilizing digital media, as well as email marketing tools. All of these things have already been integrated in the development of this survey to begin with, and are reinforced with the customers who follow our administration practices. We grant them the gold badge is what we call it, and that allows them to be included in our national report so that you are getting the highest quality data possible in our national reports to make sure that it is absolutely standardized so you can compare apples to apples with top quality data. Starting with general rules of thumb when conducting these kinds of surveys. Students respond best to those that they know, like, and respect. So when you are preparing your outreach to these students, it helps to keep that in mind when designating who's going to be the signatory on your emails or the email address that it's coming from. This may or may not be the same person who's actually administering the survey or necessarily the person with the most prestige, but a contact on your campus who the students connect with, who they have familiarity with, and who they like. Personalization of your administration really helps to drive response rates. The students want to know that it's them in particular that you are interested in hearing back from, and that drives their engagement and their interest in the survey. Not every approach or strategy may work on every campus, but most can be adapted to fit your particular needs. When designing the survey and planning it out, think both short-term and long-term for the administration. On our end, we administered the survey for a course of about 13 months to allow those at graduation responses from students, and then allow graduates to update their initial responses up to a year post-graduation to get the most up-to-date data possible. Another general rule of thumb is know where you can find help. Who is it with which you can consult and get assistance, or have a little bit of expertise to mix in. For those best practices that are before the survey launch, really design your survey to facilitate completion as well as updates. Surveys should be short and have identified the survey priorities and limit the kinds of questions that you are going to be included. The questions should be coherent with one another and not stray too far from the primary objective. Formatting is important because text entry and matrix format questions should be avoided if possible because they provide very complex data on the back end, which really takes a lot to render and make reporting very feasible and easy when you're trying to facilitate this as quickly and easily as possible. Gaining institutional buy-in up front and before the survey launch can be huge. Contact faculty and staff to involve them in the process. You can leverage departmental event, capstone courses, and graduation processes to integrate the survey into your institutional practices at the get-go and make it even more effective. Utilizing filtering reports and sharing them in and amongst your institution helps to demonstrate the value of the data and gains even more buy-in across your campus for future initiatives. You can utilize multiple admins. In our end, we have the multi-admin tool and the admin entry tool for data to gather secondary source information to help spread the workload. Not everything must be reliant on the one administrator contacting the students, but it can be multi-administrator approach and collecting data both from the students or graduates' responses to the survey, as well as data collected or mined through secondary sources. When you launch a survey prior to graduation, it's highly recommended that you utilize what's called a preview email. Institutions that launch about a month prior to graduation tend to get higher response rates from what we found over the course of these past 4 years. Using a preview email tends to result in a larger group of respondents. This preview email is a brief introduction to the survey campaign to let them know that it's coming and expect those emails and follow-ups, just so they can be aware and be prepared to engage in it. An on-time launch allows for many of the other strategies that involve leveraging student engagement with campus and graduation activities. So the biggest key for, or the biggest takeaway for launching before graduation is to allot for plenty of time before your graduation event for those students to become engaged. Incentives are a huge bang for your buck. By promoting prize drawings as well as incentives such as prizes on the right are one of the best ways to increase response rates. Coupling with giveaways such as pens and university swag, which may already be available, is a great way to double down on this strategy. If you conduct multiple incentives or prize drawings during the administration period, selecting candidates by completion of the survey or updating their response to encourage returning responses is the strategy that we use on the outcome survey team at the national level to help drive and encourage response rates to collect that most up-to-date data. Incorporating the survey with graduation events that are already existing on your campus is again, another fantastic way to excel your response rates above the typical group of responses, anywhere from 30% is what we've found generally, into the 60s and 70s and even 80s. If you consider and promote the survey as either a hard or soft requirement for graduation, that is another tremendous incentive for the student graduates to participate. Even incorporating the survey as a to-do item on the graduation checklist may insinuate to them that it is highly important for them to participate. You can also set up other protocols, such as setting up a fast path lane for cap and gown pickups, or setting it as a requirement for cap and gown pickup. For instance, if a student can show that they have completed the survey, they get to skip to the front of the line to pick up their cap and gown. And oftentimes, this turns out to become a longer line than the original line to begin with. So it's quite an effective technique. The same can be said for commencement tickets, making it a requirement of sorts to either pick up your commencement tickets at all, or perhaps to get a couple extra for extended family members. And outside of all of these strategies is the tried and true tabling at campus events, or perhaps on your quad, just to get a little bit more exposure. Any way that you can increase your brand and increasing exposure will pay dividends in the long run with your student engagement. Along that lines are utilizing digital media. Once again, leveraging existing resources such as university accounts that may already exist, or email campaigns that are already scheduled ahead of time. It's easier to tag on your survey initiative to these existing resources than reinventing the wheel from scratch, and you will get more legitimized appearance and a little bit more exposure. Utilize the platforms that your students and graduates are utilizing, such as Twitter and Facebook accounts that already are getting lots of views from your audience. Social media campaigns can be leveraged to a great extent, again, such as Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, those platforms that are in high demand and high usage in our student population. Something that we have promoted internally with our customers are utilizing our administrators' email signature blocks. That is a prime piece of real estate for marketing that largely goes unused. You're sending out emails quite often already to your graduates and your students, and so adding in a tagline right there will increase your exposure just by the natural course of your day-to-day work. Lastly, and most obviously, is posting something on your school web pages, locations to where your students are already going to be going, especially when it comes near to your graduation events. Moving on to email tools. Something that we strongly encourage is to identify the most effective email addresses. For instance, we highly recommend that you utilize students' .edu addresses, your institutional emails, before graduation. This is the primary email address that they are going to be using as they approach graduation, as they coordinate all the activities that they need to get their ducks in a row and graduate into either the working world or onto their next stage, whether that be continuing education. That address is highly utilized by those students before graduation. However, upon graduation, they're not going to be using that same address as much or as frequently. So we highly recommend updating to a recently collected personal email address shortly after graduation. And again, we emphasize recently collected because it's oftentimes that we collect personal email addresses when students are first going through the admission process to the university when they are a freshman, and those are usually quite outdated and may not be in use as much. So again, collect those personal email addresses shortly after they either create their LinkedIn account or are looking more and more into the job market for a more professional email account. When you're sending out email correspondence, it's strongly encouraged to personalize the messaging and have specific calls to action, because general emails to students, it's going to be hard to engage their attention outside of a form letter, and not including a specific call to action. These messages are largely going to be overlooked, and the students are not going to engage. When you're putting together these correspondence, always emphasize and re-emphasize the benefits of participation, not only at the institutional level, that it is important to you all that you hear their feedback and their personal feedback, but also you can drop another line on the incentives, such as the prize drawings, just to encourage their participation. So those were a brief overview of some of the best practices that we have identified working with partner institutions utilizing the outcome survey over the past 4+ years. And we found that each one of those have contributed a unique increase to student engagement and response rates, as well as increased exposure for the university initiative at large, making this year survey initiative as successful as possible. So now we're going to move on and hear from our art and design panelist institutions on some of the experiences that they have had over their experiences conducting these kinds of surveys, and some of the strategies that they have employed to really maximize their results. We're going to begin with Montserrat College of Art, moving into our representatives from Columbus College of Art and Design, as well as ArtCenter College of Design. So may I present Catherine Mitchell-DeRico, the Director of Career Services from Montserrat College of Art. Catherine?
Yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. No problem. So I'm going to assume that everybody else can.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Michael. We have been using the outcome survey as long as I've been here, so at least 3 years, if not 4. And we found when I first came in, we did some incentive pieces where we did an iPad or certain gifts that they could get for the survey, but what we found was really the most effective was to require them to do the survey before they could even pick up their cap and gown. So we kind of start an email campaign early on in the spring semester. We let them know, that it's an important way to kind of give back to the school, and that it doesn't take very long, which is always key with students, and that they really are not able to actually get their cap and gown until they've sent me a submission form that says that they completed the survey. So what sometimes happens with that is that students will go to pick up their cap and gown, and they haven't done it, and so they haven't done the survey, and so we'll have stations set up where we can say, oh, well, guess what, you can just do it right now. And that helped a lot. We just had 3 computers set up in the library, which is right next to student services here at Montserrat. And that way, if they hadn't done it from all the emails that we had sent them ahead of time, then they had a person, they could do it right on site before they could even pick up their cap and gown. And that raised our percentage rate. I mean, it was huge. I think it was something like 20% response rate that we were getting. And then, last year it was really high. I mean, it was almost everyone. So that was very, very helpful.
If I could chime in really quick, I just wanted to point out something else that that you mentioned that stood out to me. I mentioned at the start of designing your survey initiative to keep it to a minimal and reduced number of questions for the overall survey length, just as a general best practice. But marketing that as well to your students and saying that the survey isn't going to take very long at all is also a huge second step and a part of that, to let them know that it's not going to be an intimidating process. And in fact, it's going to take you a matter of moments to get this out of your hair and complete the requirement or receive the incentive, so that it's no sweat, and reduce those barriers for completing the survey, and letting them know that you appreciate that effort. So thank you for bringing that up.
Sure. In terms of when I was preparing for this and looking at the data from last year or this past spring, there were just a couple of things that were kind of surprising, maybe not groundbreaking, but we had been moving towards working on entrepreneurship programming, playing around with the idea of presenting a minor, maybe a major. We had started a class called the Business of Art. Again, this is right when this was in 2015 when I came in, and so I was part of that one course, the Business of Art. And then we were able to, when we went to look at the outcome survey, we're kind of developing our own programming around entrepreneurship. But when I looked at just this last spring's data on it, it was amazing to me how many of our students as seniors were identifying themselves as entrepreneurs. And it was actually higher than the national average, which was really, really helpful to know. We kind of expect that from our illustrators and from some of our design students, but many of the fine artist students were also identifying as entrepreneurs and interested in kind of, this business-minded programming. And that is so helpful in terms of getting funding, as you know, for curriculum. And so we have now moved on to create a minor called Entrepreneurship and the Arts. So that was a really big boon, which it may seem or feel obvious, but it was not, that the students were actually incorporating that lingo, and it was coming from them that they were identifying themselves as entrepreneurs as they left here and understood that they would be freelancing quite a bit and needed some of those skills. So that was one really surprising piece that we got from last year's data. And then the other piece was simply that more in terms of coming into the college, many of the students were really identifying that they were looking for personal enrichment and also to make an impact on society. Here at Montserrat, we're very small, and we've known that kind of the personal narrative, the ability to tell a story, and the really the transformation process that can happen here is central. I think in some ways more than other colleges, just in the sense that students are coming in, many of them are first generation college students, and they're coming from environments that haven't been supported in the arts, let alone higher education. And so we see really major growth among our students during the 4 years that they're here. And again, I guess I was surprised to see, we were all surprised to see that they were coming in with that intention, and that was documented in data, that they were really looking to make an impact and to kind of align their values with their education, was something that I don't think any of us realized was really going to come out in a survey in the data. So that was just another surprising piece.
That's great to hear that, the survey that you are putting out is getting you the normal information that you sought at the beginning, but also added additional value to the long run in seeing your students' perceptions of themselves and explaining their own personal narratives, both as they exit their institutional program and how they view themselves, as well as reporting on their original motivations when they began that report.
Yeah,
they began that program.
It's kind of obvious, obviously we wouldn't be using surveys if we didn't believe in the data, but I think, that data gives you such such an architecture to be able to talk with others about funding opportunities, in development. When I go out and, talk to different creative companies and are working with employers to create internships, it's just really so incredible to have, the backbone of data to back you up, which I know Joanne kind of mentioned at the beginning. So yes, it was nice that it aligned with some of the things that we were already working towards, but we just had finished our huge strategic plan, so it was really helpful in that regards, and we just, went through NASAD and NEASC again, and so it really has been helpful with some of the larger institutional goals that we have.
That's fantastic. You mentioned something that I want to bring up really again, or clarify something, and perhaps Joanne can come in as well. But I mentioned at the start that the outcome survey, we offer national reports aggregated across all of our institutions that are following our recommended administration processes. But I know that we have a particular relationship with our other AICAD affiliated institutions as well. So Joanne, do you have a moment to explain how Montserrat is able to compare their results to other AICAD institutions using the outcome survey?
Sure. So we get from GradLeaders reports, the 6-month and 12-month, I believe, report that aggregates all the AICAD data. So we can share that with our membership, and I will fully own, I'm not sure that we've done a really great job of sharing it with everybody, because we share it with presidents, and then I'm not sure that it always filters down from the president's office. So I'm working on the pipeline for communicating results more effectively. But we do get that, and I'm going to make sure that all, it's in the hands of all the career directors who are participating too. So we get a consortium report on the 6-month and 12-month outcomes. Schools can then are able to take their own individual results and compare them with the consortium report, and as well as, I guess, because I guess you get, you can compare to national data as well, so you kind of get this nice perspective of where you stand in comparison to your AICAD peers, where you stand in comparison to a broader national sample. So it's a nice sort of data set to be able to have in your hands.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Joanne, for clarifying that for the rest of the group, and thank you, Catherine, very much for presenting on behalf of Montserrat.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Sure.
Next, we're going to be hearing from Tiffany Sparing, the Director of Career Services at Columbus College of Art and Design.
Hi, Michael. This is Tiffany.
Hey there, Tiffany. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background using the outcome survey there at Columbus College of Art and Design, and what you've been doing.
Sure. So here at CCAD, we've been using the outcomes survey via GradLeaders since December of 2014, and that was a little over a year after I started in August of 2013. And I can say that I've been incredibly happy with the process, just the peace of mind alone, knowing that we're able to benchmark against other schools, and then also that I know that we're using standardized questions and best practices, but the aspect that's been most helpful and beneficial to us is being able to access those major specific filtered reports. I can't tell you how often I receive requests from various departments for number of students who have completed internships, or specifics on employment data from various departments, and it's so nice to be able to access those filtered reports and offer that information with confidence rather than me trying to manipulate data on my own.
Sure. I suppose it's a double-edged sword promoting your survey initiative across the campus, because everybody's going to have questions specific to their circumstances, and if you're not in a place or prepared ahead of time, that can be rather challenging unless you have a solution in place to answer those rather particular questions.
Sure.
What are a couple of the strategies that you've been using to really make this a successful initiative on your campus?
Well, what I attribute our success to so far is the fact that I feel like Career Services at CCAD has high visibility on campus, and that could be in part because we are a relatively small campus. We hover around 1,100 students, but we make it a point in our office to attend as many tabling events as we can, as many student events as we can. We're pretty visible from orientation, freshman year, all the way through graduation. We're also involved in our senior professional practices class. We host workshops, employer panels. We have a program on campus known as the ROC Show, which the ROC in ROC Show stands for Recruiting on Campus. So students are kind of accustomed to seeing us often. We're not required to attend all tabling events, but we tend to get involved with those when we can, just to, again, increase that visibility. As far as incentives, what we've done historically is we developed a poster campaign, both hard copy and then a digital poster campaign, to inform seniors that participated in the survey that they'd have an opportunity to win their graduation fee back at rehearsal. So what we did is our graduation fee at CCAD is $150. So we bought a Visa gift card to draw a name for a student to win their fee back. And what we'll do this year is we'll purchase more of those, and I will draw a couple of names leading up to graduation rehearsal, and then I will probably draw 3 more live at graduation rehearsal. So at CCAD we have pretty active Facebook pages for our various class levels. So the class of 2018 has its own Facebook page. So my plan this year is to promote that right on that class page. We also have a student portal called My CCAD, so I'll make sure that we're promoting this on there as well. And then that last point about planning ahead, I found the timeline calculator to be really helpful. As long as I'm planning by January of every year, I'm getting things on my calendar to make sure that I'm working with our registrar to submit our launch materials on time and to make sure we're sending at least 5 messages to all of the graduates within the survey year. And then I'm also going in to send personal messages for students that are either in progress or have not started the survey.
That's fantastic to hear that some of the tools that we've already incorporated and provide as resources for you as an administrator are becoming helpful. Especially we have tools that are available for our administrators when they're getting ready to design the cadence of their email administration and email campaigns, which is the timeline calculator that she referenced earlier. But as well as using some of the marketing materials that we have available and some of our other best practices that we recognized, such as getting out your name and having high visibility with your students and utilizing, small incentives. I'm glad to hear that those are working for you.
They sure are. Very helpful.
What do you have for us going forward?
So for 2018, we're just looking at increasing our response rates however we can. So what I'm doing for the class of 2017 rather is I believe we're right around 50% or a little over 50%, and that survey of course doesn't close until May of this year. So we still have time to go in and send personalized emails to students. We still have time to go in and enter what we would call our knowledge data from what students are doing, what we're seeing on LinkedIn, or what we might hear from faculty. And my hope is between now and the time that the survey closes that students will go in and verify that information for us. Like I said, we're going to increase our number of incentive prizes. So we used to do 1 drawing at graduation, and then I followed up with an additional incentive prize after graduation this year. I'll do a few leading up to the rehearsal and then a few at the rehearsal and at least one after, so I'll keep promoting those incentive prizes. And then to your point about including sort of a soft requirement, we are working with our registrar to include the outcome survey link in a graduation checklist. So they've already received some information. There are several letters that go out over the course of the spring semester to our graduating seniors, and they've already received a little blurb on anticipating a link from grad leaders to complete the survey. And once we get all of our student data in there, I'll update that blurb so that it actually includes the link for them to access the survey live. And then I think I mentioned already sending personalized emails, and then we'll work with our marketing team as well to develop a social media campaign to promote. So historically, we've just done a few posts on Facebook, but I'm going to be talking to our marketing team about how else we can get the word out there and use other channels, maybe including Instagram and possibly Twitter.
Sounds like a recipe for success. You're doing a whole bunch of things that that have shown over our history to really help out with both initial response rates and when they become engaged. Initially, that has shown dividends in the long run that they will continue to participate. So, looking to be in good shape there, Tiffany.
Yep, and I even picked up. Yep. No problem. I picked up a few tips just listening to you as well, so I'll probably be using your email signature block suggestion and then the call to action in the personalized email, so that was helpful.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So thank you very much, Tiffany. Now we're going to hear from the representatives from ArtCenter College of Design, Esmeralda Nava and Stephanie Marshall.
Joanne, I just want to interject one really quick thing, and just to make it really clear to everybody who's listening that the schools that are presenting, Montserrat, ArtCenter, Columbus College of Art and Design, we invited them specifically to talk to everybody because they're getting such phenomenal results around their response rates and using the data in such creative ways. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear that these folks are just doing the best job. So now I'm going to be quiet again.
Thanks, Joanne. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me okay? Hear us okay? Hello?
Yes, we sure can.
Okay, great, good. Okay, no, we're very happy to be here and share our experience with the outcome survey. We actually are very happy and believe that the survey serves our students very well. I thought we'd give you a little bit of history to provide a little context of what we were doing before the outcome survey. So at ArtCenter, employment data actually has something that's been important to us for a long time. We do have quite a robust number of students in our industrial design type programs, and so those students, place very well traditionally in employment, and so it's something that we have been tracking. And we had a transition, right around 2010 to 2012. We had a vendor that we were using. We were a paper-based system, and we were getting actually pretty good response rates of about 50%. And it was actually managed out of the Career and Professional Development Office. Now, what happened is that as we started to grow, we actually had a very healthy growth in the last decade, which is wonderful. We also, that coupled with the fact that we also graduate classes 3 times a year, was making it kind of difficult for the Career and Professional Development Office to manage the survey kind of ongoing every single term, because their own calendar was conflicting with some of the things that we wanted to do. So it actually came under the Office of Institutional Research. We also, at that same time, were looking at the instrument. It wasn't as robust as we wanted it to be. We wanted to be more confident with the data, have the ability to benchmark, and again, use national standards and, be more confident with the outcomes that we were getting. And because response rates are very important to us, because the departments really want to know what's happening in their department. We have very specialized majors, so it's important that we have enough of a sample size to really be able to provide the departments with a nice number that they can make meaning out of. So we actually looked at the outcomes, and we'll talk a little bit about all the different things that we liked about them, but we did actually make a strong business case that we presented to the provost, to the department chairs, and to the president, and they all thought it was a great idea, and especially the part about benchmarking. We actually have a long history with AICAD that we value very strongly, and it is a group that we're able to compare our data with, so it was really a natural transition for us to go to the outcome survey. And let's see what else. 2015 we launched, and it was really crazy year because we were actually playing catch up with our 2014 classes and also piloting the 2015 survey. So we were really a little stretched thin, but we actually got great results. And at the end of the day, it's really kind of about the manpower. It is a lot of elbow grease, which is why I actually had Stephanie join me with this presentation, because she does a lot of the elbow grease that's required to get our response rate. So.
Awesome. Yeah, as Esmeralda said, we have a higher number of survey cohorts due to the fact that we graduate 3 times a year. So that means that, schools traditionally just graduate in spring, but we're tracking spring, summer, fall graduation cohorts, and also the following spring. So that makes planning and implementation very important to us. When we adopted the outcome survey, we had a lot of discussions with them. We really wanted to understand how it was going to work, what important things we needed to remember. So Michael has mentioned a lot of that today. But we streamlined our process, and we set earlier target dates for setup. That means that using the timeline that the outcome survey provides, they give you a deadline for launch, and usually they request that you submit all of your data 10 days before that. So we're trying to do that much earlier. That means that we are working with the registrar to make sure that our data for our cohorts is accurate. Our college has created a special timeline to help us stay on track. We're definitely willing to share that timeline template with other schools if they're interested, but it helps us to see every single cohort that we have running, internal deadlines for us, external deadlines for the outcome survey, any additional reminders that we've set, the closing dates, and then when we're reporting. So it really helps us to stay on track with every single cohort that we have going at once, because obviously we have a lot of them. I work for the Director of Institutional Research, Esmeralda, who's here with me, and we do regular check-ins together to make sure that we're staying on track with what's going on. That means that we're frequently checking response rates, we're prepping for the next cohort, we're setting any additional reminders, we're making plans for any sort of marketing campaign that we have, and that really helps us to make sure that we are reaching our goals when it comes to every cohort, and especially response rates, because having higher response rate obviously is going to get you better data. It's really important to you, and I think the other schools would agree, and certainly Michael would agree, it's really important to use what resources you have. So at ArtCenter, we have a reporting system that we use to pull reports for institutional research, and IT has created special reports so that when we prepare our data to do our uploads for our implementation requests, that we can easily check and verify that the data is correct. That prevents any sort of issues with students that are not graduating. We also use current students, so we have student workers in our office that work for institutional research. We have them help us to design materials for our marketing campaign and also to do research outreach to alumni. And alumni really like the fact that we engage current students in the activities around the grad employment survey. Esmeralda and I, obviously at the very beginning, but since we meet regularly with the provost and other partners that we have at ArtCenter, including the Office of Career and Professional Development, to help us strategize about things, the process around the grad employment survey, and that really helps us to keep an open line of communication so that we're aware of any other things that might be happening on campus, events that we might be able to attend, other surveys that might be conducted with alumni, and it helps us to make sure that we are, again, reaching our goals, but also that nothing is interfering with our process. Outreach to us, to alumni, is super important. Personal contact with alumni and being able to connect with them about the grad employment survey is going to get a higher response rate for us. That means that also if alumni email us and ask for reports probably for the college level, having to do with the grad employment survey, that we're able to provide those very quickly. So that the reporting function, utilizing the reporting functions through your dashboard and being able to pull reports and manipulate them, which is what we do at our school, really helps with transparency and reinforces that we care about the results, the feedback that we're getting from the alumni.
And I'll just to briefly touch over, why the outcomes really meets our needs. And I think it hits upon a lot of the things that the other folks have already mentioned. But we were very comforted by the fact that it does follow national standards. And for us, it actually sort of wakened an interest, which is, what about the 5-year? And we know that, our students, because art and design students don't necessarily come out the gate and have the same type of outcomes in terms of employment as some of the other graduates nationally. So a 5-year survey would be really interesting, but as you can see from, from the amount of work that it takes, we can't just add a 5-year without, additional support. So we actually have made the case, in part to have some additional staff to fund a 5-year, the 5-year outcome one. So we're excited about that and happy that we're able to provide, data that's interesting and meaningful to our constituents here. We also, again, part of the AICAD consortium has been just wonderful. Incentives for each survey, I think we're pretty consistent with what other schools have been saying. And then the kind of the support that you got from the outcomes from the grad leaders, the implementation, the dashboard, the quick response, especially when we're first learning this process and aren't really sure if we're doing it right. We can get on the phone and get responses really quickly, and everything is very seamless. I mean, I think it's very easy to do. And so all of those things, and again, the magic is in all the work that we have to do, but we're happy because this platform really allows us to kind of put our work to good use. And so we're very happy with that. And I think Stephanie's going to share just a few things that she learned about how to increase our response rate.
Strategies. It's really important to try things, new things, different things, and we've heard a lot today from other schools about what they're doing, and we actually got really excited when we were listening, because we were like, oh, that's a great idea. Some of the ideas that we've had and some of the things that we have tried, the one really basic thing is just reviewing data before you complete your implementation request. It really helps you to avoid sending the survey to non-graduating students. Students are often really stressed out and anxious about graduation, so we don't want to send any communications to anyone that's not graduating and has some bad feelings about that. So we're very careful with that. Also, checking to make sure email addresses are correct after graduation. As Michael mentioned, students often change their emails, and then again, right before you send this 3-month survey out. Response rates are super important to us. We try really, really hard to get over 50% if we can, and again, we're tracking 4 cohorts at once. So to have the 3 classes be at 50% or above is really important. That means that we are constantly contacting them to remind them to do the surveys. We set a goal of about 6 additional reminders, emails for each cohort, and then we also send them a reminder right before the survey closes, so when you're out, and that really drives up our response rates a lot. At our college, I personally go to graduation rehearsal the day before graduation for every single graduating class, and I do a brief presentation for the students. I remind them that they've gotten an email from grad leaders and our school in regards to the survey, and that if they are changing their email address, could they please do it soon? And also the timeline for the surveys, incentives, and just, make myself available if they have any questions about the survey. I'm also on stage helping the registrar's office, because registrar is who conducts the graduation rehearsal prep. I'm personally handing a flyer with all the information that's a student design flyer to each and every student that's graduating, along with their drink tickets and their tickets for graduation. And that's really helpful because I get that personal contact since I'm the one that's conducting the survey with the grad leaders, and Esmeralda, that's a really super moment to connect with them. We had a graphic design student that we hired, and they made some animated GIFs. Those animated GIFs, we have them posted to our social media accounts for ArtCenter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also we post them to our department websites at the end of each semester. So that's hitting those cohorts that are graduating, obviously, and then the one right before the close of the 1 year out for the previous year. One of the most special things that we do and the most fun things for me that we do, because I'm in institutional research, so I'm not engaged with students quite as much, is we conduct phone campaigns with every single cohort. So every single group that we have, 1 month before the survey closes at 1 year out, we call all of the students that have graduated that need to do the survey. So these calls are made by me in institutional research and also current students that are student workers. We do it at dinner, sometimes on the weekend, and we call anyone that has not responded to the survey, that has not opened the email, to make sure that those email addresses are correct, and then we would then go into the system and change the email if the person that we're calling has said, you know, no, that's not my email address. We also call any of the graduates that have an incomplete survey. That means that they have maybe partially completed it or started it and not finished it at all, or haven't logged in since before the 6-month out survey. And that really helps us it helps us to raise our response rates. We definitely get higher response rates after we do that phone campaign. It helps to get the incompletes taken care of, because if you have a lot of incompletes, that data is definitely not you don't have as much data as you would have if they had completed the survey. And it really helps round out the marketing campaign. So I've made a speech at graduation. I often say, don't know if you remember me, but I spoke at graduation, and sometimes they do. And the alumni really they like that outreach. They like that personal contact. They want to know that their feedback is being used. They want to know that the school cares about what happens to them once they're gone. And so our response rates were driven up a lot using those strategies. Yep. That's what we got. Yeah.
You guys are absolute rock stars, and I want to take the time to thank all of our panelists for participating in this, because it's quite obvious that you guys are going above and beyond and really engaging and buying into these surveys, and you're really making the most out of it. So thank you guys again very much for participating. And as you all heard from our guests, there are a lot of strategies that you can employ to really make the most out of this kind of initiative. And we here at GradLeaders in the Outcome Survey, we have a lot of tools to help facilitate those. But just so that you have something to take away and know that you might be able to employ on your end, some of the things that we iterated here were thorough planning ahead of time is key. Identify your overall goal and particular objectives well in advance so you can plan a route to success. There are lots of moving parts in these kinds of survey initiatives, as you all heard, and so there's just lots of considerations. Giving yourself that time to prepare for that will only do yourself justice in the long run. If you can utilize existing resources that are already on your campus, such as staff or other vested parties, technology or established procedures, you can go a long way, and you can try to reduce how much you have to reinvent the wheel. When you're building your team, identify internal stakeholders, people who you can consult for their knowledge and expertise, other teammates that can help distribute the workload. That can be really key. Personalizing your outreach, once again, for those graduates. It's very important to get them engaged so that they know that it's meant for them and you are interested in their unique perspective. It helps legitimize the appearance of your survey and your initiative, and really taps into the perspective that you are interested in their particular outcome. So it's important that they respond. Incentives are huge, and they're quite effective for the relatively low cost. Everyone loves giveaways, and oftentimes you already have these sorts of materials already on hand at your university if you're able just to rub shoulders with the right folks. Identifying the effective follow-up procedures for reaching out to the right kinds of folks with the right message. If you can, again, reiterating personalization here, you don't want to just spam a general email to everyone, but reach out to specifically the group who has not completed the survey yet and left with an incomplete response, and deliver a message to them. Deliver a message specifically to those who never began. Deliver a message to specific colleges so that they know that it's their particular program who is interested in their response. They can be very effective ways for follow-up. And lastly, sharing your findings. This expands the impact of your results and helps you gain additional buy-in across your institution if you share the findings that you get from this survey initiative, and it can only do you justice and bring you gains for future endeavors as well. Joanne, do you have anything that you'd like to mention on top of these items?
Just thank you to everybody for all the panelists for sharing their great strategies, and thanks for everybody for listening in. And again, I know we're sort of out of time, I think, but if you're a small school in particular and you're interested in participating and want more information about the AICAD umbrella, please just reach out to me, pick up the phone, give me a call, or send me an email or whatever, and we can talk more about it and make sure everybody gets on board. This is just, it was really great to hear this and to hear it all, and I'm inspired by what I heard today, and I love the strategies. It's great. You know, I'm feeling positive about moving forward.
Absolutely. Again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our attendees. Thank you, Joanne, for coming. We are running up on the end of our time, so we are going to pass up on an open Q&A section. I think that we've reached out to everyone who submitted a question, but if you have something that comes up, feel free to reach out to either myself, again, Michael Bell. You can reach me at support@theoutcomesurvey.com with any questions. I'd be happy to help you out. And Joanne has also made herself available as a resource if you have future questions that come up or would like to participate. We'd love to have you. So thank you all very much. And this is going to conclude our presentation on facilitating graduate employment surveys best practices.
Michael, it was recorded, right? Did we record this?
Yes, it is recorded, and
okay.
Once
so we'll make it available
marketing,
at some point.
Yes, absolutely. We'll get it cleaned up and make it available either by contacting us here at GradLeaders. We'll share a copy with you, Joanne, as well, so that we can have it accessible for folks who are interested.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you all.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.